Well, the breaking news of the night, reported by MSNBC's Kellyanne, who will join our coverage this hour, is that federal prosecutors have written a memo arguing against trying to charge former FBI Director James Comey with crimes. Donald Trump has publicly demanded that James Comey be charged with lying to Congress, which is only possible in the next 6 days before the statute of limitations would run out and make it impossible to charge James Comey on that. This week, Donald Trump forced out the U.S. attorney who he personally installed in the Eastern District of Virginia after that U.S. attorney refused to try to bring charges against James Comey. Donald Trump replaced that U.S. attorney with a woman who has never tried a case of any kind in federal court and has never been a prosecutor, but did serve as one of the lowest ranking members of Donald Trump's criminal defense team. Donald Trump's attempt to illegitimately use federal power, including federal prosecutorial power, literally knows no bounds in either direction. There's no rule too small for Donald Trump to break and no rule too big for Donald Trump to break. And as you just heard today, Donald Trump had a statue of him and his pal Jeffrey Epstein removed from the National Mall, where the statue had a permit to appear this week until Sunday at 8 p.m. The National Park Service removed the statue this morning, as they said, due to it not being in compliance with the permit. But the National Park Service refuses to say how the statue was not in compliance. It's a 12-foot tall statue, as you just saw, bronze painted statue of Donald Trump and the man who said he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years, the sex trafficker and raper of children, Jeffrey Epstein, who Donald Trump said was a terrific guy. The two men are holding hands in the statue and smiling at each other. That statue made Donald Trump the first president in history to have a statue of himself placed in Washington during his presidency. The National Park Service possibly violating its own permit rules to take down the statue is the least, as we said, of Donald Trump's abuses of presidential power. Last night, in a special election, voters in Arizona gave our first guest tonight one more member of the Democratic team in the House of Representatives. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries will be joined on the House floor by Democrat Adelita Grijalva, who won a special election for the House seat held by her father, Congressman Raul Grijalva, until his death in March of this year. That means one more signature for the discharge petition that can force a vote in the House of Representatives to release the Epstein files. Semaphore reports that Republican Congressman Thomas Massie is, quote, declaring victory on his move to force a vote on releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files after the election to fill a vacant Arizona House seat. And he says House Speaker Mike Johnson and some of the powers that be in D.C. are in full panic right now about it. They came back and tried to get the four of us to take our names off the petition, Massie told Semaphore after an event in his northern Kentucky district. They asked some of my colleagues who are co-signers, and they actually threatened them politically, not physically. Massie said if Johnson uses parliamentary tactics to evade a vote, that there's enough notoriety on this issue that people will know that he's sweeping this under the rug. He also said if there is language included in a bill to sideline the petition, those who vote for that bill are part of the cover-up. And the reviews are in for Donald Trump's deranged speech to the United Nations yesterday. Deranged was the word chosen by the British newspaper, the Daily Mirror, which also called Donald Trump the world's most powerful man-baby on the front page. The subheadline says Trump rants to the UN about climate, migrants, Gaza, Sadiq's Sharia London, escalators, marble floors, and teleprompters. The world's most powerful man-baby called for an investigation of why the escalator at the United Nations stopped while Donald Trump was on it. The UN complied and found that The Trump staffer assigned to record video of Donald Trump's escalator ride probably stopped the escalator by mistake as he walked backwards to at the top of the escalator. The United Nations issued a statement about the investigation, saying a subsequent investigation, including a readout of the machine's central processing unit, indicated that the escalator had stopped after a built-in safety mechanism on the comb step was triggered at the top of the escalator. The safety mechanism is designed to prevent people or objects accidentally being caught and stuck in or pulled into the gearing. The videographer may have inadvertently triggered the safety function and the safety function described above. The children at Fox rallied around the world's most powerful man baby and decided before the UN investigation that the escalator problem and a malfunctioning teleprompter were sabotage.
Yeah, they sabotaged them.
Yeah.
And they could have hurt the First Lady.
Yeah.
Trump would have fallen and he would have gotten back up. But, you know,
they would have blamed it on his rhetoric.
And then they sabotaged the teleprompter.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an insurrection. And what we need to do is either leave the UN or we need to bomb it. It is in New York.
There were no threats from Donald Trump or his administration against the stupidest person at Fox saying we need to bomb the United Nations. Rupert Murdoch, the billionaire owner-operator of the Fox propaganda channel, had absolutely no problem with one of the people he pays to lie for Donald Trump advocating bombing the United Nations. Presumably, their defense is it was a joke. That is not a defense that Donald Trump and his thuggish administration accepted in the case of Jimmy Kimmel, who came back on television last night after Donald Trump tried to get him banned for telling a joke. All Donald Trump succeeded in doing is getting Jimmy Kimmel the largest TV audience possible last night. Rupert Murdoch's refusal in any way to restrict his propagandists who suggest bombing buildings in America is proof beyond a reasonable doubt that there are no standards of any kind for anyone working at the Fox propaganda network, and there never will be. But they will happily continue to try to ban other people from television on other networks. And speaking of deranged, Donald Trump's reason in writing for canceling a meeting with our first guest tonight is that Democrats want, quote, transgender operations for everybody. Those are Donald Trump's actual words in explaining why he canceled a meeting about the federal budget with the Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and our first guest tonight, the Democratic leader of the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries. Donald Trump has also said in writing the Democrats want to leave dead people on Medicaid and Social Security rolls. That's his other reason for not meeting with Hakeem Jeffries. Donald Trump also said the Democrats want crime. Now, no politician in American history has ever accused the other party of being in favor of crime. Many Republicans have claimed that they are tougher on crime. But think of how deranged you have to be to say that Democrats want crime. Does that mean Democrats don't lock their cars? Does that mean Democrats don't lock their homes? Donald Trump says so many deranged things like that in a day that it's impossible to keep up with them. Negotiating the financing of the federal government in bipartisan negotiations is something that every president in our lifetimes has done repeatedly. Prior to Donald Trump, everyone involved in such negotiations has always taken that role very seriously. Everyone involved shared some sense of responsibility to keep the government funded. But how do you negotiate with someone who has no sense of responsibility about anything? How do you negotiate with someone who has already violated the budget laws that you've already passed in Congress? How do you negotiate with someone who's deranged? How do you negotiate with the world's most powerful man baby? Now, we can all sit back and think it's impossible to negotiate with the man baby. And we are probably right. But there are some people who have taken an oath of office that prevents them from fully indulging the feelings that all of us might have tonight about the utter pointlessness of trying to negotiate with the world's most powerful man baby. Our first guest tonight has taken an oath that requires him to do exactly that, requires him to try to do what we all have a right to think might be impossible, requires him to try to negotiate with the world's most powerful man baby.